Blood ran down the church aisle like palm oil spilling from a broken calabash. The choir's song had died in their throats, replaced by the piercing cry of Nneka's mother, Chukwu Ekwina. God forbid. What kind of man are you? Everyone froze. Even the pastor's Bible slipped from his trembling hand. There, before the altar, stood Chidi, the man everyone thought was a saint, the man who led morning prayers and quoted scriptures with fire, holding something no one expected to ever see in the house of God, a machete, dripping red. Nneka's white wedding gown was torn, her veil scattered across the floor like fallen feathers. Her eyes were wide, filled with disbelief. She tried to crawl away, but her voice came out in a whisper. Chidi, please, this is not you. But it was him. The same Chidi who had come from church meetings with Bible verses on his lips and blessings on his tongue. The same man who had promised her heaven on earth. The congregation began to murmur, some praying under their breath, others shouting for help. But Chidi turned toward them slowly, his eyes blank and hollow, as if someone, or something else was controlling him. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the lights flickered and went out. Darkness swallowed the church. And in that silence, one chilling voice echoed through the building, a voice that wasn't Chidi's. Didn't I warn you to think twice before marrying someone from the church? Months earlier, the story had begun like every other love story in the small town of Umokoro. Nneka was the kind of girl everyone loved, humble, bright, with laughter that could calm a crying baby. She lived with her widowed mother in a small mud house near the village stream. Life wasn't easy, but she believed in God's timing. Every Sunday, she would walk to St. Peter's Church wearing her neatly ironed second-hand dress, singing louder than anyone else in the choir. That was where Chidi first noticed her. He was the new youth leader, tall, soft-spoken, with the kind of voice that could make any Bible verse sound like poetry. He had recently returned from the city after what he called a spiritual calling. The first day he preached, the whole congregation clapped until the pastor had to beg them to stop. Even Mama Nkechi, who never liked young men, said, "That one, and his words are soaked in anointing." At first, Nneka didn't think much of him. She had seen too many men pretend to be holy just to get close to girls in the choir. But Chidi was different. He was kind. He helped her mother fetch water when she was sick. He taught the Sunday school children and never raised his voice. Before long, whispers began in the village. "They make a good pair," one woman said after service. "A man of God and a daughter of grace." When Chidi finally proposed, right there in the church compound after evening service, everyone rejoiced. The pastor blessed them immediately. Nneka cried tears of joy, thanking God for sending her a man who loved both her and the Lord. But there was one person who didn't smile that day, Mama Ebo, the oldest woman in the village. She sat quietly on the church bench, watching them with tired eyes. When Nneka walked past her, she caught her hand and whispered, "My daughter, love is sweet, but be careful. Not every man in the church belongs to God." Nneka laughed politely and said, "Mama, you worry too much. Chidi is a good man." Mama Ebo only shook her head. "There are spirits that hide behind Bible verses. Think twice, my child. Think twice before marrying someone from the church." Nneka didn't think much of it. Old people always had strange warnings. Besides, everything about Chidi felt perfect. He visited her home often, always with gifts, a bag of rice here, a small envelope of money there. He prayed with her mother every evening, and sometimes, his prayers made even the walls tremble. But after some months, small things began to feel odd. Sometimes, when Chidi was alone, Nneka would find him staring into space, murmuring to himself in a language she didn't recognize. Other times, he would wake up from nightmares, drenched in sweat, shouting things like, "Leave me. I said leave me." When she asked, he smiled and said, "It's just spiritual warfare. The devil is trying to test me." But the way his eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight that night, it didn't look like the devil was testing him. It looked like the devil was living inside him. Still, Nneka loved him too much to listen to her fear. Love, she thought, could fix anything. The wedding was set for August. Everyone in Umokoro was excited. The women planned to wear matching blue lace, the choir rehearsed new songs, and the pastor prepared his longest sermon yet. But on the night before the wedding, something strange happened. Around midnight, a knock came on Nneka's window. She opened it, expecting her mother, but found Mama Ebo standing there, wrapped in a black shawl. "My daughter," she whispered, "come outside. I need to tell you something." Nneka hesitated but followed her to the mango tree behind the house. The old woman's hands shook as she spoke. "You don't know who that man really is. The spirit that follows him, it's not holy. I saw it in my dream last night. During your wedding, something terrible will happen." Nneka frowned. "Mama, please, not tonight. Tomorrow is my wedding day. That's why I came. If you marry him, your blood will cry out." Nneka stepped back, frightened now. "Mama, you're scaring me." "Then listen to me. Break the marriage before sunrise." But Nneka ran back inside, her heart pounding. She locked her door and told herself Mama Ebo was just being superstitious. The next morning, the wedding day dawned bright and beautiful. The sun painted the sky gold, and the air smelled of fresh flowers. Everyone gathered at St. Peter's Church, smiling and singing. Chidi stood by the altar in a white suit, his Bible pressed to his chest. Nneka looked like an angel as she walked down the aisle. Her mother wept tears of joy. The choir sang, "This is the day that the Lord has made." But as the pastor said, "If anyone knows why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The church door banged open. The wind howled. And Mama Ebo's voice filled the room. "Don't marry him. That man is not who you think he is." Everyone gasped. The pastor frowned. "Mama Ebo, please, this is not the time." But before he could finish, the candles near the altar blew out on their own. Chidi's body stiffened. His pupils rolled back, his skin turning pale. Nneka screamed, "Chidi! What's happening to you?" Then his voice, deeper, darker, spoke words no one could understand. The ground trembled. People fell to their knees in fear. And that was when he reached for the machete. The church erupted into chaos. The once holy man of God was no longer himself. And as the crowd scattered, the truth that Mama Ebo had warned about stood clear before them. Nneka had not only married a man of the church. She had married something else entirely. The scream that tore from Nneka's throat could have split the heavens. People rushed for the doors, stumbling over pews and flower petals. Some fainted, others tripped, and a few froze in shock, whispering frantic prayers. But Chidi, or whatever he had become, didn't move like a man. His eyes were rolled white, and his lips twisted into a grin that didn't belong to him. The veins in his neck bulged, dark and pulsing. Nneka's mother ran toward her daughter, shouting, "Leave her alone. Leave my child alone." She tried to grab Chidi's arm, but the force that came from him flung her across the floor like a rag doll. She hit the wall hard, slumping to the ground, moaning softly. "Chidi, please." Nneka cried, crawling backward until her back hit the altar. "It's me, Nneka. You love me." His machete clattered to the floor as his head snapped up. For a second, just a second, his eyes turned back to normal. Tears filled them. "Nneka. I told you. I told you to run," he whispered, his voice trembling with pain. Then, suddenly, his face twisted again. The demonic laughter that followed chilled every bone in the church. "Run where? She is mine." The voice didn't sound human. The pastor dropped to his knees, clutching his Bible. "Spirit of darkness, leave this man, he cried, but his hands shook so badly he could barely hold the holy book. Mama Ebel, still standing by the door, raised her walking stick and shouted, "Everyone out. This is not a man you can pray for. This is a man bound by covenant." The word covenant hung in the air like thunder. Nneka's heart raced. Covenant. What covenant? But before she could ask, Chidi, or the thing inside him, began to speak in a strange tongue. The air grew colder, and the candles flickered to life again, their flames burning blue. Mama Ebel's eyes widened. "He's calling them," she whispered. "He's calling the spirits of the grove." The old woman rushed to the altar and sprinkled white chalk dust she had pulled from her wrapper pocket. Instantly, Chidi staggered backward, covering his face. "It burns," he screamed. "Take the girl and go," Mama Ebel shouted. Two men grabbed Nneka and dragged her out of the church as the wind howled louder. The sound of shattering glass followed them, then silence. Outside, the sky had turned grey. Birds were fleeing in all directions, and the villagers stood far away, whispering about what had happened inside the house of God. Some said the devil had entered their church. Others said it was punishment for the people's sins. Nneka knelt on the red dust road, shaking uncontrollably. What's happening to him?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mama Ebel emerged moments later, coughing and covered in ash. "It's not over," she said gravely. "That thing in him is not gone. It only left because it was disturbed. He will come for you again." Nneka stared at her in horror. "Why me? Why would he hurt me?" "Because you belong to him now," the old woman said softly. "You said I do before heaven and earth. The spirit that owns him now owns you too." Nneka froze. No, I didn't know. I didn't know." Mama Ebel sighed. "He wasn't always this way. Chidi used to be a good man, but he made a terrible mistake long before you met him." That night, Nneka and her mother didn't sleep. The entire village was restless. Some people wanted to burn down the church, saying it was cursed. Others said they should call the pastor from the next town to perform deliverance. Meanwhile, Nneka sat by her window, staring at the dark sky. She remembered how Chidi used to smile when he talked about their future, how he held her hand during prayer, how he promised to love her forever. Now, all she could see were those cold, empty eyes and hear that deep, unearthly voice. Her mother came in quietly, holding a bowl of soup she hadn't touched. "My daughter, eat something. You've not eaten since morning." "I'm not hungry, Mama," Nneka whispered. "I just want to understand what's going on." Her mother sighed deeply. "I told you from the start, love is blind, but marriage will open your eyes." She sat beside her. "When a man looks too perfect, sometimes he is hiding something. Maybe it was not your fault. Maybe this is God's way of showing you something." Tears rolled down Nneka's cheeks. "Mama, I loved him. I thought marrying someone from church meant he was safe." "Not everyone who kneels in church prays to God," her mother said softly. They sat in silence until a sudden knock came at the door. "Who is that?" Nneka's mother asked. No answer. Another knock. Louder this time. "Maybe it's one of the elders," Nneka said hesitantly, rising to open the door. Her mother grabbed her arm. "Wait." The third knock shook the entire door. "Open the door, my wife." The voice was calm, gentle, too gentle. Nneka froze. It was Chidi's voice. Her heart dropped. "Mama, it's him." Her mother's eyes widened in fear. "Lock it. Don't open that door." But before Nneka could move, the door creaked open on its own. The wind blew in, carrying the smell of earth and palm wine. Standing there in the doorway was Chidi, his clothes torn, his face pale as chalk. "Nneka," he said softly, smiling like nothing had happened. You ran away before I could explain. Her mother grabbed a wooden cross from the wall. You're not welcome here. Leave us alone. Chidi's smile didn't fade. He stepped inside slowly, his bare feet leaving damp footprints on the floor. I'm still your son-in-law, Mama. Why are you afraid? Get out, she shouted. He turned to Nneka, ignoring her mother completely. My love, come with me. The wedding wasn't finished. You're still my wife. Nneka shook her head, tears streaming down her face. You tried to hurt me, Chidi. You're not the same man. Something flickered behind his eyes, sorrow, anger, pain, then darkness. I told you not to run, he whispered, his voice deepening. Now the others are angry. The others? Nneka repeated, backing away. He lifted his hand and pointed toward the doorway. Shadows began to form their shapes like tall, thin figures, moving as if the wind itself had come alive. Their eyes glowed faintly red. Nneka screamed. Mama Ebel burst through the back door, holding a calabash filled with white powder. Back! Back, spirit of the grove, she shouted, throwing the powder toward the figures. The shadows hissed and retreated. But Chidi didn't move. He only looked at Nneka and said in that broken, haunting voice, if I cannot have you in life, I will have you in death. Then the wind exploded through the room, blowing out the lamps. When the lights returned, Chidi was gone. Only the smell of burnt palm leaves remained. Nneka collapsed, sobbing, as Mama Ebo knelt beside her. This is just the beginning, the old woman said, her voice shaking. The spirit that binds him is not done yet. You are part of its covenant now. Nneka looked up, trembling. What covenant, Mama? What did he do? Mama Ebel's face turned grave. To understand that, we must go to the grove where it all began, before he became the man of the church. And just as the rooster crowed in the distance, a low rumble rolled across the village, thunder, though the sky was clear. The spirits were awake. By dawn, the news had spread through all of Umokoro like harmattan fire. Did you hear? They said Chidi vanished into thin air. Vanished. My friend said he turned into smoke. That's what happens when people mix light and darkness. Everywhere, people whispered, their faces pale with fear. Some women refused to send their children to church that morning. Others poured salt and chalk around their doors, muttering prayers to keep evil spirits away. Inside Nneka's house, the atmosphere was heavy. The smell of burnt palm leaves still lingered. Nneka sat by the window, staring at nothing, her eyes red from crying all night. Her mother sat beside her, holding a rosary and whispering prayers under her breath. Then, a gentle knock sounded on the door. Who is it? Her mother asked sharply. It's me, came Mama Ebel's weary voice. They opened the door. The old woman stepped in slowly, her wrapper dusty, her face drawn. She carried a small leather bag and a bundle of herbs. Pack your things, she said immediately. We are leaving this house. Where are we going? Nneka asked, her voice trembling. To the grove, Mama Ebo replied. That's where the truth lives. If you want to break this curse, we must face it where it started. Nneka hesitated. But the grove is forbidden. The pastor said we shouldn't go there. Mama Ebel's eyes hardened. Yes. Because the pastor knows the truth. That grove was once the shrine of the spirits Chidi served, before he put on his white shirt and called himself a man of God. Nneka gasped. You mean Chidi used to be a priest? Mama Ebo finished. Not of the church, but of the forest. Her mother made the sign of the cross. Chinik. What kind of thing is this? Mama Ebel's voice dropped. Years ago, before you ever came to this village, Chidi's family was known for their power. His grandfather was the chief priest of the Aku Grove. They served a spirit called Onwamiri, the spirit of the moon water. It granted them wealth and protection, but only if every first son continued the covenant. So Chidi, Nneka whispered, was supposed to inherit it, Mama Ebo said. But when he grew older, he ran away to the city and joined the church. He thought he could abandon the old gods and start anew. But you cannot run from a covenant you didn't break properly. The spirit followed him, even into the church. Nneka covered her mouth, her hands shaking. That's why he always looked tired, why he prayed so much. Yes, Mama Ebo said quietly. He was fighting something too powerful for him. And when he fell in love with you, he tied you to it too. Her mother stood suddenly. Then we must pray. We must fast. God will break it. Mama Ebo sighed. Prayer is good, but prayer without understanding is like fighting a lion with a broom. We must confront the spirit where it lives, in the grove. That is where Chidi sealed the covenant before he became a churchman. Nneka swallowed hard. Her mind flashed back to the wedding, the way the lights went out, the voice that spoke from Chidi's mouth, the way he disappeared into smoke. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw his face, torn between pain and something darker. All right, she said finally. I'll go. They left the house before sunrise. The sky was painted in soft orange, and mist hugged the trees. The path to the grove was narrow, covered in thick bushes. Birds called from above, but their cries sounded distant, like echoes from another world. As they walked, Nneka's mother kept muttering psalms under her breath, clutching a small bottle of anointing oil. Mama Ebo walked ahead, her walking stick tapping the ground rhythmically. After an hour, they reached the edge of the forest. The air changed, heavier, colder. The smell of damp earth filled their noses. In the middle of the clearing stood a massive tree with roots like coiled snakes. That's it, Mama Ebo said softly. The heart of the Aku Grove. The tree looked alive. Its bark shimmered faintly, as though breathing. Small carvings covered its trunk, strange symbols, half erased by time. Nneka felt a wave of dizziness. Mama Ebo, I don't like this place. None of us do, the old woman replied. But the truth hides in the shadows. Hold your courage. She knelt and began to sprinkle white chalk in a circle, chanting in a language Nneka didn't understand. The air grew colder. The wind rustled the leaves even though the trees around them were still. Then, faintly, a whisper came, from nowhere and everywhere. Why have you come? Nneka froze. The voice was soft but heavy, like thunder trapped in a whisper. Mama Ebo didn't look up. We have come to break what should never have been joined. The girl is innocent. Let her go. She belongs to him, the voice said. And he belongs to us. Suddenly, the ground trembled. A thick mist rose from the roots of the tree, swirling around them. Out of the mist stepped a shape, tall, covered in silver light. It had no face, but its presence filled the air like a storm. Nneka fell to her knees, shaking. Please. I don't want this. I didn't know. The spirit tilted its head. Ignorance does not cancel blood promises. Mama Ebo lifted her staff. I am the daughter of the old line of watchers. I command you in the name of the Most High, release this child. The spirit hissed. You dare speak his name here. The ground cracked. The great tree split open slightly, and from within, Nneka saw a figure bound by chains of glowing vines. It was Chidi. His eyes met hers. Nneka, he whispered weakly. I tried to fight it. I went back to the grove before our wedding, to break the covenant, but I failed. It was waiting for me. The spirit roared, and the mist grew darker. He gave himself willingly. His soul is ours. No. Nneka screamed. Take me instead. The moment the words left her mouth, the spirit froze. Even Mama Ebo gasped. The air became still. The mist stopped moving. A cold laugh filled the grove. You would take his place. Nneka's heart pounded. If that's what it takes to free him, yes. The spirit stretched out its hand. A beam of white light shot toward her, wrapping around her body. She cried out as the light burned her skin, her body trembling violently. Stop! Chidi shouted from within the tree. Don't touch her. I made this mess, not her. But the spirit ignored him. Mama Ebo raised her hand and shouted words that shook the air. By the light that breaks the curse, I bind the shadow to itself. A blinding flash erupted, throwing everyone backward. The sound was like thunder and drums beating at once. When Nneka opened her eyes, the grove was silent. The mist was gone. The great tree was still again. But Chidi was no longer bound inside it. He was lying beside her, breathing, weak, but alive. Nneka crawled to him, her heart racing. Chidi, are you free? He opened his eyes slowly, tears rolling down his face. Yes, but not for long. Mama Ebo frowned. What do you mean? Chidi coughed weakly. When you broke the curse, it didn't disappear. It only moved. It found another host. He looked up at Nneka, eyes wide with fear. It's inside you now. The ground trembled again, louder this time, and Nneka screamed as a burning pain shot through her chest. Her veins glowed faintly beneath her skin. The spirit's voice whispered in her ear, low and cold. You said you would take his place. Nneka's scream echoed through the forest like a wounded animal's cry. Her body arched backward, her eyes rolling white as the light spread through her veins like fire. The earth trembled under her, and the air thickened with a strange humming sound. Chidi tried to crawl toward her, but every time he moved, the vines on the ground came alive, wrapping around his arms and legs. Nneka! Fight it! Don't let it in, he shouted, his voice breaking. Mama Ebo was already on her knees, scattering more chalk dust around Nneka. Spirit of the grove, I command you. You have no power here. But the spirit only laughed, a slow, echoing sound that rattled the leaves. Power. She offered herself willingly. A soul given freely cannot be reclaimed. Nneka's body shook violently. She clawed at the earth, gasping. It's burning, inside me. Hold on, child. Mama Ebo cried, pressing a small calabash against Nneka's chest. Hold on and do not speak its name. The moment the calabash touched her skin, a flash of light burst out, and the smell of burning leaves filled the air. The spirit screamed, a terrible sound like iron scraping on stone, and the lights flickered. When the glow faded, Nneka collapsed, unconscious. Chidi broke free from the vines and crawled to her side. Please, God, don't take her, he whispered, his hands trembling as he touched her face. She doesn't deserve this. Mama Ebo sat back, panting heavily. She's alive, she said after a moment. But the spirit, it's inside her now. It will test her, twist her, until it owns her completely, unless we find a way to cast it out. Chidi's face hardened. Then tell me what to do. I'll do anything. The old woman looked at him gravely. Anything? Yes, he said without hesitation. Then you must go back to where it began, she said. To the river of the moon, Miri Onwa. That is where your grandfather first made the pact. If we perform the cleansing there before the next full moon, we might save her. When is the next full moon? He asked. Tomorrow night. Chidi's eyes widened. Tomorrow. That's too soon. Yes, Mama Ebo said, rising slowly. But if we wait, she will belong to them forever. By evening, they carried Nneka back to the village. Her body was weak, her skin pale as if the life had been drained from her. She slept restlessly, murmuring strange words in her sleep. Sometimes her voice changed, deep and heavy, like the spirit's. The villagers gathered outside her mother's hut, whispering. "I said it," one woman muttered. "That marriage was not ordinary. They should send her away before she brings more trouble," another said. But when her mother came out, her eyes blazing, the crowd went silent. "No one will touch my child. Go home before I curse all of you." They scattered quickly. Inside, Mama Ebo was mixing herbs and ashes in a small pot. She rubbed the paste on Nneka's forehead and muttered an old incantation. "We must keep her tied to the land until the ritual. If the spirit realizes what we plan, it will fight to keep her." As night fell, Nneka stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, but they were not her eyes anymore. They glowed faintly silver. "Mama," she whispered, her voice strange. "Why do you cry?" Her mother froze. "My child." Nneka smiled faintly. "Don't be afraid. I see everything now. I hear them calling." "Who is calling you?" Mama asked softly. Nneka tilted her head, listening to something only she could hear. "The river, it's singing to me." Before anyone could stop her, she stood and began walking toward the door. Chidi rushed forward. "Nneka, stop." She turned to him slowly, her expression unreadable. "Chidi," she said, her tone gentle but hollow. "You shouldn't have come back for me. You broke your vow, now I must finish it." "Please," he said, grabbing her shoulders. "You're not the spirit. You're Nneka. You're my wife." Her lips curved into a small, eerie smile. "Your wife died in the church." Then, in one swift motion, she pushed him so hard he flew backward, crashing into the wall. The hut shook. The clay pot shattered, spilling the herbs across the floor. Mama Ebo raised her staff and shouted, "Back to the shadows where you came from." A gust of wind burst through the window, extinguishing the lamp. For a moment, the only light came from Nneka's glowing eyes. She laughed softly, but it wasn't her laugh. "Tomorrow night, at the river," the spirit said through her mouth. "That is where we will finish what began." And then, as suddenly as it came, the light in her eyes faded, and she collapsed. Chidi crawled to her, shaking. "She's breathing," he whispered. Mama Ebo sighed. "The spirit is mocking us. It already knows we will come. But we have no choice." The next night arrived faster than anyone expected. The moon rose full and bright, silver light washing over the forest. The path to the river glowed faintly, as if lit by unseen hands. They carried Nneka between them, her head resting on her mother's lap. She hadn't spoken since the night before. Her body felt cold, her pulse faint. When they reached the riverbank, the water shimmered like glass. The air was heavy with the smell of wet earth and something sweet, like decaying flowers. "This is it," Mama Ebo said. "This is where his family made their offering. The spirit's power is strongest here." Chidi helped lower Nneka to the ground. He looked around nervously. "What if it's a trap?" "It is," the old woman said simply. "But that's why we must finish the ritual before midnight." She began to draw symbols on the ground using white chalk and red clay, forming a large circle around Nneka. She placed cowrie shells at each corner and lit 3 candles, one white, one black, and one blue. "Sit opposite me," she told Chidi. "You must call her name 3 times. Don't stop, no matter what happens." He nodded, his heart pounding. The ritual began. The wind picked up, rustling the trees. The river's surface rippled as if something large was moving beneath. The candles flickered violently. "Nneka! Nneka! Nneka!" Chidi called, his voice shaking. Mama Ebo chanted, her voice deep and rhythmic, the language old and strange. Suddenly, Nneka's body lifted off the ground, her hair floating around her like black smoke. The circle of chalk began to glow. Then, her eyes opened, pure silver light spilling out. "It's too late," the spirit hissed. She is ours. The river exploded upward, a massive wave of glowing water surging into the air. From within it, dozens of shadowy figures emerged, their voices merging in a haunting chant. Chidi screamed, "No! You can't take her." He stepped into the glowing circle, grabbing Nneka's hand even though Mama Ebo shouted for him to stop. "Chidi, don't. You'll be pulled in too." But he didn't let go. "I promise to love her," he said through gritted teeth. "Even if it means I burn." The spirit roared. The water surged higher, wrapping around them both. For a brief second, everything stopped, the wind, the river, the night itself. Then a flash of white light burst from the center, blinding everyone. When the light faded, the river was still again. The candles were out. Nneka lay motionless on the ground. Chidi was gone. Only the faint sound of his voice lingered in the wind, whispering her name. The silence was broken by a low rumble, not thunder, but something deeper, older. The river began to glow again, faintly. Nneka gasped and sat up suddenly, eyes wide, breathing hard. Mama Ebo rushed to her side. "Child, are you yourself?" Nneka looked around, confused. "Where's Chidi?" Her mother's face fell. "He is gone." But before anyone could say another word, the surface of the river rippled, and in its reflection, Nneka saw something that made her blood run cold. Chidi's face, smiling faintly beneath the water. Then the reflection whispered, clear as day. "I'm not gone. I'm waiting." The sound of the river lapping gently against the stones filled the night, but to Nneka, it no longer sounded like water. It sounded like breathing, slow, steady, alive. She stared at the reflection trembling on the surface. Chidi's face looked calm, almost peaceful, as if he were merely sleeping beneath the water. But when his eyes opened, glowing faintly blue, her heart froze. "Chidi," she whispered, crawling closer to the edge. Her mother grabbed her arm. "Don't go near that river. That's not him anymore." But Nneka's eyes filled with tears. "It is him. He saved me, Mama. He wouldn't hurt me." Mama Ebo shook her head gravely. "Child, listen to me. The spirits never give without taking. Chidi's soul is bound to the river now. If you touch that water, it will claim you too." But as if the river heard her words, Chidi's reflection moved closer, lips parting, his voice a whisper carried on the wind. "Nneka, come to me." Her breath caught. "He's calling me. Don't listen." Mama Ebo shouted, stepping between her and the river. "He's no longer speaking as a man. The spirit is using his voice to finish the covenant." But then the reflection spoke again, this time louder, clearer, and unmistakably Chidi's. "Nneka, I didn't die to leave you. I died to set you free. The spirit didn't take me. I took it." Mama Ebo froze. "What?" Chidi's image flickered, his expression twisting with pain. "When the light came, I pulled it into me. I'm keeping it trapped, but it's too strong. It wants out. It's calling you because your soul is still linked to mine." Tears streamed down Nneka's face. "What do I do?" "Break the bond," he said. "Go far from here, across the river, past the hills. Burn everything that ties us together. The ring, the clothes, the Bible we shared. But if I do that," she whispered, "you'll be gone forever." Chidi smiled faintly. "It's the only way to end it." Before anyone could respond, the river began to churn violently, glowing brighter. The ground beneath them shook. Mama Ebo grabbed Nneka and pulled her back. "It's fighting him," the old woman cried. "The spirit wants to escape." The water shot upward, forming a giant hand of liquid light. Within it, faces screamed silently, dozens of them, their mouths open in agony. The air grew thick, humming with power. Nneka fell to her knees. "No, Chidi. Don't let it win. His reflection flickered, struggling to stay whole. Do it, Nneka. Burn it all now. Nneka turned to her mother. Mama, the Bible, where is it? Her mother fumbled through the small bag she'd carried from the house. The wedding Bible, gold-edged and white, fell into her hands. Here. Nneka took it, her hands shaking. She looked at the holy book that had once symbolized her love, now a chain binding her to the darkness. Forgive me, God, she whispered, but I must let him go. She tore out the first page, the one that read, Nneka and Chidi, joined by heaven, and dropped it into the fire Mama Ebo had just lit from a fallen candle. The flames hissed blue for a moment, then flared high. At once, the river screamed. It wasn't water anymore, it was voices, thousands of them, crying out in rage and sorrow. The glowing hand shattered, sending droplets of light flying in every direction. The reflection of Chidi looked up, his expression full of pain and peace at the same time. You did it, he said softly. Now go, before it finds another way. Chidi. Nneka shouted, reaching toward the water, but her mother pulled her back just as the river exploded with light. The brightness swallowed everything, the trees, the sky, even the stars. When it faded, silence fell. The river was calm again, dark and still. The moonlight reflected perfectly, undisturbed. Chidi was gone. Days passed, and the village slowly returned to its old rhythm, though no one ever went near the river again. The elders declared it cursed. The church was closed for cleansing prayers. The people whispered about what had happened, but no one spoke Chidi's name aloud. Nneka stayed in her mother's hut, barely eating, barely sleeping. She often stared into the distance, lost in thought. One morning, she woke from a dream where she'd heard Chidi's voice, not the dark, twisted version, but his real voice, laughing softly, telling her he was free. That morning, she decided to leave Umuokoro. Mama Ebo helped her pack. You've seen enough for 10 lifetimes, the old woman said gently. Go where the wind takes you. Start again. But remember what happened here. Nneka nodded, tears in her eyes. I will. Before she left, she walked to the church one last time. The door creaked open, and the faint smell of dust and incense filled the air. She stood where it had all begun, where she had once said I do. Her hand brushed the altar. For a moment, she thought she heard a faint heartbeat in the walls, but maybe it was just her own. Goodbye, Chidi, she whispered. Rest now. Then she turned and walked away. As she reached the edge of the village, a soft breeze blew through the trees. It carried a whisper, barely audible, almost like the rustle of leaves. Think twice before marrying someone from the church. Nneka froze. She looked around, but there was no one there. Just the wind, and the faint sound of water flowing far in the distance. She smiled sadly, clutched her small travel bag, and kept walking, away from Umuokoro, away from the past, and toward whatever life waited for her beyond the hills. But as the last rays of sunset fell over the river, the surface rippled just once, and from its depths, a faint reflection shimmered. A man's face. Watching. Waiting. And smiling.